You are the only man who has ever spoken in Spandau to Rudolf Hess. What impression do you gain of his mental health from speaking to him?
I have the impression that Rudolf Hess is insane because he cannot remember.
You say Hess is insane. Do you think that he could fit into life if he were released from prison and that he could adjust to going home to his wife?
There is a room always ready, waiting for him when he comes out of Spandau.
Has he changed much over the past 25 years while he's been in prison?
Not at all, except his hairs are grayer.
At the end of this week, Spandau Prison will add a new record to its bizarre and notorious history. It will guard the most expensive prisoner in the world, Rudolf Hess, once Hitler's deputy. Hess will be the only prisoner left in a jail built for over 600 prisoners and costing £70,000 a year to run. At the moment, there are 3 men left in Spandau of the 7 top Nazis sent here for their war crimes nearly 20 years ago. The 3 men are Hess, Baldur von Schirach, the Hitler youth leader, and Albert Speer, the Führer's armaments minister. Just after midnight next Saturday, von Schirach and Speer will leave this prison for freedom, having served 20-year sentences meted out on them at the Nuremberg war trials. At Nuremberg, Hess was given life, which means forever. Hess, a broken, pitiful 72-year-old schizophrenic whose sanity has been in doubt for nearly 30 years, is obviously now an embarrassment to the Allied powers who run Spandau. The British, American and French want to release him. The Russians say no. For the Russians, Spandau is not only a reminder of German war guilt, it's also one of the last places in West Berlin where they can maintain troops. So unless the Russians have an uncharacteristic change of heart, Rudolf Hess, ex-deputy Führer and prisoner number 7 in Spandau, will remain here for the rest of his life, alone, in a £70,000 a year fortress.
For Rudolf Hess, Spandau is the nightmare end to his Führer's dream of a Reich that would last 1,000 years. Hess joined the Nazi Party in 1920. He became a fanatical follower and secretary of Hitler. By the beginning of the war, he was deputy Führer. But after the outbreak of war, Hess felt his position close to the Führer was in danger. In 1941, he flew alone to England and bailed out from his plane over Scotland. His mission, a crazy bid to arrange peace between Germany and Britain. Hitler knew nothing of the plan. Hess is mad, he said. Equally puzzled, the British put him in jail. The Hitler Youth was the responsibility of Baldur von Schirach, who will be released from Spandau this Saturday. Von Schirach conscripted all children between 6 and 18 for the Hitler Youth. During the war, Hitler made Schirach, a confirmed Jew-hater, governor of Vienna. Arms production was the job of Albert Speer, the other war criminal who gains freedom this Saturday. Using slave and concentration camp labor, he commanded a 14 million man workforce. Speer made loyal last-ditch efforts to save the Reich and only disobeyed when Hitler ordered him to destroy Germany's factories before the oncoming Allies. At the Nuremberg trials in 1945, Hess got life. Speer and von Schirach 20 years in prison. After months of Allied wrangling over choice of prison, they were finally sent to Spandau. The RAF flew the convicted Nazis to Berlin on July the 18th, 1947. It was Rudolf Hess's last sight of the outside world. From Gatow in the British zone, the prisoners were driven to Spandau Prison, which the Allies had made as escape-proof as possible in case any of the 7 still nurtured dreams of being the new Führer in a Nazi revival. The Nazis had used Spandau for political prisoners. Now it was to house 7 men, looked after by a prison staff of over 50 and guarded by over 100 soldiers. To this day, the numbers are unchanged, even though there are only 3 old men as prisoners. The military, like the prison staff, comes from Britain, America, France and Russia, each nation taking monthly turns to provide the soldiers. The Russians have the reputation of being the toughest jailers of all, and besides old war grudges, they have an extra reason for liking Spandau. It puts their troops once every 4 months into West Berlin, For them, a political toehold they refuse to give up. 6 watchtowers surround the half-mile outer wall with its electrified fence. Spandau's electricity bill alone is £3,500 a year. Photographs outside and inside Spandau are strictly forbidden. But this exclusive film shows the first ever shots of one of the prisoners, Albert Speer, in the high-walled prison garden. Speer, from the first, was always keen to work in the garden. The 59-year-old von Schirach, half-blind and in poor health, doesn't work there now, while the eccentric Hess spends hours in his cell. Speer, though, at 61, is fit and has an architect's job awaiting his release. Von Schirach will be able to retire on the fortune left to him by rich American relatives. But for Hess, freedom seems far off, while the Russians insist on retaining Spandau to keep their troops in West Berlin. The Brandenburg Gate, where West Berlin is divided from east by the Communist Wall. On the West Berlin side of the wall is the second Russian presence in West Berlin, the troops who guard the Soviet War Memorial for the Russians who died in the battle for the city in 1945. It's another political toehold in the West, and the Guards, though a token force, make certain it impresses. The last remaining Russian presence in West Berlin is the Air Safety Center, where details of all flights to and from the city must be sent. In this way, the 4 powers can keep an eye on each other's movements, and the Russians especially on Britain, America and France. It will be a strange new Germany that Albert Speer and Baldur von Schirach will find when they come out of prison on Saturday. And a different Berlin too, unrecognizable from the smashed and ugly ruin of war. A prosperous city, but a city divided, like Germany itself, between East and West, where the question of Nazi crime and punishment seems far off compared with the immediate problems of communism and how to hang on to newfound prosperity. Young people, for the most part, don't even know the names of the prisoners of Spandau. For Germans 20 years ago, Speer, von Schirach and Hess were household names. Today, only the old remember. In the Bavarian Alps at Geilenberg lives one woman who can never forget Spandau, the wife of Rudolf Hess. I went to the guest house which she runs there to see if I could get her to break the silence she's imposed on herself about her husband's case over the years. Although Rudolf Hess has never seen the house, the bell's initials suggest Frau Hess thinks he will someday. But for the moment, she's not telling anyone about it. It requires more than a little faith to believe that Hess will end his days here to the tinkling of cowbells rather than to the jangling of Spandau prison keys. Hess's lawyer, Dr. Alfred Seidl, is still campaigning for his release. He's the only outside person to have seen Hess in the past 20 years on 2 recent visits to Spandau.
Dr. Seidl, why do you think Rudolf Hess should be released?
Rudolf Hess should be released for 2 reasons. The first reason is a legal reason, and the second is his mental health. Rudolf Hess was charged with crimes against humanity, second, war crimes, and third, preparation of aggressive war. Now, he was found not guilty of the first two charges, and he was sentenced only in the third point. The third charge for which he was found guilty is illegal. Because preparation of aggressive war is not a crime for an individual.
And on grounds of mental health, why do you want him released?
An American professor, Professor Walsh of the University in California, has examined Rudolf Hess, and he has the opinion that Rudolf Hess is ill.
You have spoken in Spandau to Rudolf Hess. You are the only man who has ever spoken to him. What impression do you gain of his mental health from speaking to him?
I have the impression that Rudolf Hess is insane because he cannot remember.
You say Hess is insane. Do you think that he could fit into life if he were released from prison and that he could adjust to going home to his wife?
No. In his letters to his wives, he showed that he probably would adjust to life at homes in Nuremberg, in Allgäu, near Munich. There is a room always ready, waiting for him when he comes out of Spandau.
Has he changed much over the past 25 years while he's been in prison?
Not at all, except his hairs are grayer.
Why has he refused always to see his wife and son and anyone visiting him?
He has refused to see his wife and his son because he found prison's conditions beneath his dignity.
On Saturday, Rudolf Hess becomes the last prisoner of Spandau, alone except for the ghosts of the past.